We captured their trucks, and they were still half full. Oberleutnant Karl-Heinz Becker, letter home, September 1944.
On August 25, 1944, just east of Chartres, a German infantryman knelt beside a burning hedgerow and pried open the metal cap of an abandoned American jerrycan. He expected fumes, maybe sludge. What he smelled instead was sharp, clean gasoline, fresh, usable, plentiful. He dipped his fingers inside, rubbed them together, and stared at them in disbelief. Fuel. Real fuel. Enough to move tanks, trucks, whole armies. By that date, German formations in France were already rationing movement by the leader. Panzer crews of Panzer Lehr Division had orders not to idle engines. Drivers of the 116th Panzer Division were told to coast downhill with engines cut. Some units parked vehicles permanently, stripping them for parts like carcasses on a drying plain. Fuel was no longer logistics, it was fate. And yet here were the Americans, leaving it behind. The soundscape told the story before the maps ever did. At night, along the roads between Cherbourg and Reims, engines roared without pause. Not tanks, trucks. Tens of thousands of them. Deuce-and-a-halfs growling nose to tail, headlights hooded, convoy lights glowing like red embers. The Americans called it the Red Ball Express, activated on August 25, 1944, the same day Paris was liberated. To German ears, it sounded like an industrial heartbeat that never slept. Captured German officers would later say the noise alone was demoralizing. Fuel was the invisible weapon of the Allied breakout. After Operation Cobra smashed the German line near Saint-Lô on July 25, 1944, American armies did not pause to consolidate. They surged. Patton's Third Army, officially operational on August 1, began advancing so fast that frontline units outran their own supply depots. The Germans assumed, logically, that the Americans would soon stall. No army in history had moved that fast without running dry. The Germans were wrong because they misunderstood American logistics culture entirely. On September 3, 1944, near Verdun, elements of the 2nd Armored Division refueled in the open, engines running. Jerry cans were stacked chest high. Gasoline sloshed onto the dirt, turning the ground black and wet. Soldiers smoked anyway. They joked about it. One tanker, Corporal James O'Neill, later recalled, "We treated gas like water. If you needed it, it just showed up." To German prisoners watching from the roadside, it looked obscene. American fuel abundance was not accidental. It was engineered years earlier in quiet rooms far from the front. By 1943, the United States was producing over 60% of the world's oil. Refineries along the Texas Gulf Coast in California ran day and night. Tankers crossed the Atlantic in convoys. Pipelines were laid under fire. One of them, Pluto, pipeline under the ocean, began pumping fuel from England to Normandy in September 1944, directly onto the continent. German intelligence knew about none of it in time. On the ground, the effect was psychological as much as physical. In Lorraine, near Nancy, German Volksgrenadiers ambushed an American supply column in October 1944. They destroyed several trucks and captured the rest. Inside, gasoline, oil, spare parts, chocolate, cigarettes. The fuel cans were stamped with dates barely weeks old. One German soldier reportedly asked, "How many trucks like this do they have?" No one answered. For German tank crews, the contrast bordered on humiliation. In the Ardennes, during the build-up to the December offensive, crews of Kampfgruppe Kuiper were briefed that capturing American fuel depots was essential. The plan itself admitted the truth. Germany could no longer supply its own spearheads. When Piper's men overran dumps near Bühlingen on December 17, 1944, they found exactly what they needed: thousands of gallons of American gasoline. Without it, the offensive would have died within days. Even then, it was not enough. American fuel meant freedom of decision. It meant Patton could pivot an entire army north toward Bastogne in December 1944, executing a 90-degree turn in freezing rain because the trucks would run, the tanks would start, and the gas would arrive. German commanders watched this with a mixture of rage and fatalism. They were fighting with calculators. The Americans were fighting with abundance. The human reaction on the German side was not just strategic, it was personal. Diaries recovered after the war speak of envy, disbelief, and despair. One Gefreiter wrote in September 1944, "They waste fuel like it is nothing. We count drops." Another wrote, "An army that never stops moving cannot be caught." By the time American forces reached the German border in September, fuel shortages, not Allied firepower, were the primary limiter of German response. Trains sat idle. Tanks were hidden in forests, not to ambush, but to conserve fuel for a moment that never came. The Americans noticed the contrast, too. Some were uneasy about it. Lieutenant Robert Weiss of the 4th Infantry Division recalled passing burned-out German vehicles with full ammunition racks but dry fuel tanks. "It felt like we weren't just beating them," he said. "We were outlasting them." In war, bullets kill men. Fuel decides whether armies live at all. By March 1945, as Allied columns crossed the Rhine, American fuel dumps followed within days. Trucks rolled on steel bridges still smelling of fresh welds. Gasoline flowed forward as predictably as sunrise. For the Germans watching from shattered towns, it confirmed what they had already learned the hard way. They had not lost because they fought less fiercely. They lost because the enemy never ran out of the means to keep coming. And in modern war, that difference is everything.